Can you live well with a diagnosis of Hashimoto's disease? Well, if you understand the disease and where it's coming from, yes you can. So let's explain the disease and then figure out how we might be able to help it. So Hashimoto's disease was discovered in 1912 by a Dr. Hashimoto. That's why it's called Hashimoto's disease. But Hashimoto's disease is an autoimmune disease. Now what does that mean? That means that your body has antibodies that actually attack your thyroid gland. This is a picture of a thyroid gland, which is in your neck. But it attacks certain parts of the thyroid gland, and I'm going to explain to you which parts those are. Now, let's just use this as a representation of what I'm going to tell you. Now, there's a part of the thyroid system that I like to call it, and this is the thyroid system, that actually transports your thyroid hormone in and around your body. And it's called the thyroid binding globulin. And I'm going to say this will represent the thyroid binding globulin. And what it does is it actually takes the thyroid hormone, which I'm going to call T4. Let's call this the thyroid hormone. It cleaves with it, okay, like that, and transport it, like this taxi cab, to the liver, okay? That's what thyroid binding globulin does. Now, with autoimmune disease, you can have antibodies to this. Your body could kill this off, okay? So if this is not around, it's not around to attach to the T4, okay, to transport it to the liver where it needs to get further processed into the hormone that actually works on your body. So what happens when this is dead? These sort of float around doing nothing. They go nowhere. And in effect, you have no thyroid hormone to help you function properly in your hypothyroid. That's one part of the autoimmunity. The other part, it's called TPO antibodies, or thyroid peroxidase antibodies. And let's say it's represented by this. Now what it does in the thyroid hormone itself, it actually helps your body produce T4 by cleaving with an element that actually causes a reaction to occur to another element to cleave together, and you have T4, and then it comes off, and then it can get attached to the thyroid binding globulin like that. You can have antibodies to thyroid peroxidase, so you don't produce T4, all right? So what happens when you're taking medication is you're trying to drive your body to function normally. But what happens if you take T3, which is like Synthroid, or T4, which is Armorol, or a combination of the two? There's no TBG, thyroid binding globulin to transport it, so it's not going anywhere. So that's why you still have symptoms, because the medication you're taking is not getting utilized. So what do we do about it? Well, one of the things about autoimmunity is that your body is inflamed. Your immune system is not working correctly. So what you have to do is you have to address the immune system. Now I'm going to give you a little hint, or actually not a hint, but an explanation as to where autoimmunity comes from and what you might be able to do about it to prevent it from causing problems for you in the future and reduce its impact on you. So I'm going to use these blocks again, but now they're a little different. Let's say this is a protein that you eat, right? You eat a protein. Now, it's made up of amino acids. Let's say each one of these colored blocks is an amino acid, right? So what happens when this protein gets into your digestive system is that it breaks down. So you have enzymes, which are breaking down type things, that actually break and cleave these amino acids, right, into little individual pieces, right? That's what happens. So what happens if you don't have the enzyme to break that down completely? So what you have is you have a partially broken down protein, okay? So let's say it breaks down only like this, where you only have partially broken down proteins, so the amino acids are still attached. Okay, so these are floating in your system, and what happens is that your body has a lining in its digestive tract that is basically covered with a mucous membrane. And what happens is when your stomach or your intestines are exposed to this type of thing, it produces a chemical called zonulins, which actually cause your gut to loosen. In other words, it makes it possible for these bigger things to get through into your bloodstream. When these big things get through to your bloodstream, your body looks at these as though they're foreign invaders and attacks it. They develop antibodies to it. Now, what's interesting is that over a period of time, and it could be years, it could be many years, it could be decades, these will attach to parts of the cells of your body that are naturally sort of gotten rid of, and the sort of dead cells of your body, and they attach to them because these actually happen to be very sticky, and your body attacks that combination, that dead cell from your body and this. And then that actually sets up a reaction to where it says, well, geez, these thyroid cells, okay, they kind of look like this little combination that was floating around in the bloodstream before. We should probably develop antibodies to that too. And they start attacking that, okay? Particularly the TBG, right? The binding globulin, which is already floating in your bloodstream. And that's what happens. So it starts killing it. That's where autoimmunity begins. So what is the trick? What is the thing you can do to help you live a little bit better? Maybe a lot better. There is a substance that is closely related to autoimmunity that we eat every day. And maybe some of you have heard of it. It's called gluten. And gluten is a protein. Basically, gliadin is the actual correct name of the protein. It is found in wheat products, pasta, bread, okay? It's also found in some spices. It's a gluten. It's called gluten because it glues things, okay? I recommend that run an experiment on yourself. You feel horrible anyway. The medication doesn't seem to be helping. Get off gluten for 30 days. Don't eat any bread, any pasta, any of that type of stuff for 30 days and see what happens. You could do anything for 30 days. And if you feel better, great. If you don't feel better, well, it was an experiment to try. Saved yourself a little money, maybe even lost a little weight, okay? Because you're not having the carbohydrates. So the takeaway here is that Hashimoto's is an autoimmune disease. And 90% of autoimmunity is actually triggered by food. And one of the biggest triggers of food, one of the triggers of autoimmunity, the food is gluten, which is bread and pasta. Eliminate bread and pasta from your diet and see what happens. It doesn't cost you anything. It'll actually save you money at the grocery store because you won't be buying bread and pasta. Just try it. See what happens. You never know what kind of results you can get.